Hello and welcome into another fantasy hockey video. This is the first video I'm doing post-draft. So this is on free agents, waiver wire, whatever you want to call it. Just players you can add for free by dropping a player. So in this video, I'm not going to tell you these guys are 100% you should add and drop a guy on your team because it's all situational. You might have a really loaded team and you might not have a guy you want to drop, but maybe you do and you're like, I don't really believe in this guy on my team. I want to pick someone up, but you don't know who, or you don't know who to watch going forward in case someone on your team starts underperforming and you want to drop them in the future. These are guys you should watch so far, and this is based off of 2 nights of play. So do keep in mind this is very much a reactive video, and some of these guys will be relevant in the future and some will not. So do keep that in mind. Let's get into the first team or group of players I want to talk about. That's the Flyers. Now the Flyers have some interesting guys. Some of them I think you should pick up. Some of them I think you should watch. Now Joel Farabee I think is a guy after night 1 I think you should pick up if you have a weak roster or you're in a very deep league and you were just picking at the end of the draft, just throwing darts at your board. Joel Farabee is a good shout to pick in my opinion because he's playing with Drew and Hayes. It's a solid second line. Farabee got a decent amount of playing time the other day on the second power play unit. The Flyers were running both of them pretty evenly. They put up a lot of goals against Pittsburgh. The Flyers could be a machine offensively. They're very deep, which is why I think it's necessary to talk about some depth players because some teams are just loaded and like every line can score. The Flyers look like they might be one of those teams. So I think Joel Farabee's a pickup you should make. Kevin Hayes, I think, is a player to watch because I don't think he's the most explosive player in the world. He's a solid player, no doubt, 2 points in the first game. But I'm not as sold on him being consistent. I think Farabee has more boom potential. Hayes could just be one of those guys who ranks around the 100 mark. So Hayes is someone you could consider picking up if you want, I guess I should say, a high floor. Farabee's going for the moon. Gustafsson is someone who could be having a bounce back year. He's on the second power play unit in Philadelphia. Looked pretty good in the first game. Someone to watch. I wouldn't say grab him yet. I'd much rather recommend a guy like Matt Grzelcyk, who's running the Bruins' first power play. I should have probably put him in this video now that I think about it. He will not be talked about today, but he definitely should have been. Nolan Patrick is a guy to watch. This is a former second overall pick. Looked really good the other day. A lot of people looked good against the Penguins the other day, which is kind of why I'm saying you wait and watch these guys. Farabee just was a little overwhelming to the point I'd say I think he's worth the shot of picking up right now, whereas these other 3 guys, I need to see a little more consistency. I need to see more before telling you guys you should definitely pick them up. But Farabee, I think, is a definite pickup. The other 3 guys, definitely watch them. We then move on to Tampa. I did draft Anthony Cirelli in my other league, and I think he should be owned in most leagues. He's owned in 56% right now, so a little higher owned. If he's not owned in your league, I definitely would say you should pick him up. And I think Alex Killorn is another guy who, by the end of your year, will be owned in your league, and I think he's worth rostering if you have a guy who you think you can drop. He was a 30-goal scorer last year on the Lightning. He's in that top 6. He's just a very good player, and he's pretty underrated because of all the talent around him. Matthew Joseph, I'm not going to tell you to pick him up. I would say watch him, though, because if he sticks in this top 6, he might become ownable. But that's definitely a wait and see with Matthew Joseph. We then move on to the third team I'm going to talk about, and this is the Montreal Canadiens. The Montreal Canadiens, I was saying, had a lot of sleepers in my sleepers video. Or I can't remember which. It might have been the North Division Sleepers video, I think. And I used Josh Anderson, and Josh Anderson potted 2 goals in the first game. Josh Anderson a few years ago had 27 goals in a season, and he looked like he was in pretty good form last night. If you're in a league that counts shots, look at the shot total, put up 7. Nick Suzuki looks like a stud. And Jonathan Drouin is, I think this whole line might be ownable by the time it's all said and done, which is why I think if you see one of these guys available and you got a guy you're not too hot on, you should definitely consider picking up one of these guys. I think they're all going to be ownable by the end of the year, just because I just really like what I saw in night 1. Suzuki looks like he's taking that next step. If you saw him play, he undressed Morgan Riley one play. Very impressive. I just think this combination is going to be a pretty good line for the Canadiens this year. We then go to the fourth, and these are all guys to watch, I'd say. I'd say Clayton Keller is probably the one I like the most, but Connor Garland was undeniably good last night in the Coyotes' first game. Was out there for all the key moments. End of the game when they were down by a goal, and they pulled the keeper. Garland's out there, Keller's out there, Kessel's out there. And I'm not saying to jump on any of these guys because they are on the Coyotes, and the Coyotes sometimes can go into scoring slumps. But these are all players to watch, Connor Garland, Keller, and Kessel, because I think they're all fairly talented in their own right. It's really a matter if the Coyotes can get consistent scoring. If that starts to happen, you can consider these guys, but they are people to watch right now. We then move on to the Ducks, and I was talking about the Ducks. What video was that? I don't remember, but it was the 31 questions video. I was talking about this line. And I think Max Comtois is a guy who might be on the radar to own in this fantasy season. The other two, Troy Terry, probably not. Sam Steele, probably not. But I think Max Comtois has a pretty high ceiling, and I think you guys should watch him throughout this year, monitor how he's doing. He scored 2 goals in the first game. Definitely seems like he should be a top 6 winger, and he might get upgraded or promoted to the second line over Isaac Lundstrom. His talent's undeniable. It's just a matter of if he's going to be in the right situation. So Max Comtois, only owned in 2% of leagues, someone to watch, not to pick up right now. We then move into the Kings, and this line is a weird one to me, and I'm definitely not telling you to pick up any of these guys because, if Jeff Carter gets injured again, none of these guys are worth owning. But if Jeff Carter can stay healthy, Blake Lizotte can do his thing, and Andreas Athanasiou, who does have a good goal-scoring touch and is one of the fastest players in the league, it's a line to watch. It's definitely nothing to pick up right now. But this is definitely a line to watch. We know what Kopitar does. We know what Dustin Brown does. We know what Alex Iafallo is. But the second line right here is kind of an X factor for the Kings. And I don't think a lot of people really were thinking about Jeff Carter. A little older, hasn't been able to stay healthy. But he got a goal and an assist the other night, which kind of raised my eyebrows a little. And it kind of gives me some probably false hope that maybe Jeff Carter can stay healthy and this line can do good things for the Kings. I'm not going to bet on it, but I think it's just something to monitor as a fantasy owner, especially if you're in deeper leagues. Not really a 8-team league thing, but if you're in like a 12 to 16-team league, monitor this Kings line. We then go to Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes is owned in 57% of leagues, and I'm just going to say this. I watched the whole Bruins game last night. Jack Hughes should be owned in all leagues. Looks like he's taking a step forward. Pretty explosive player. We'll say his decision-making at times is questionable, but the talent the kid has is not. Egor Sharangovich, which that name just does not roll off the tongue well yet for me. He looked like he fits. I will be honest. He looked like he fits. Didn't get a point last night, but when you watched him, he drove play pretty well. Was a pretty good force. Looks like he's going to be a solid player for the Devils. They have a thing for pulling out these Russians I never heard of. I've never heard of Sharangovich until last night. Last year, I had never heard of Nikita Gusev. Last year, I had never heard of Nikita Gusev, and he was good. So maybe these European players they bring over are just pretty good. They have a thing for it. Kyle Palmieri, we know what he is. He's around a 25 to 30 goal scorer if he continues his form. But I think Jack Hughes is bound for a breakout year this year. He had 2 points last night. I see that continuing. And I don't think either of these other guys are ownable yet. It really depends if Jack Hughes proves to be the breakout superstar that he could be. And if he's able to carry a line, these other two guys may become ownable. So other two guys on to watch. If you're in one of the 43% of leagues that Jack Hughes is not rostered in, definitely consider taking him. We then move on to the St. Louis Blues, and I think Bob Thomas should be owned in most leagues. He's actually not owned in my league, which I might change that, but I've drafted players I like. That's a thing. When you draft players you like at the end of the draft, you want to see how they do before dropping them, but sometimes that makes you miss out on other guys you like in free agency, and for me, that's Bob Thomas. Bob Thomas is, I need to call him Robert Thomas, owned in 20% of leagues. 2 assists last night. He's going to be playing between Jaden Schwartz and Mike Hoffman. Mike Hoffman did not play the other night. I believe Oscar Sundqvist was on the line. Yeah, he was. He scored 2 goals. And I think Mike Hoffman's going to fit in very well. And I think Robert Thomas is a probable top 100 player by the end of this year if he's centering this line and they play as good as they looked the other night. It looks like he took a step forward. And I think Robert Thomas is going to do well for you if you pick him up in fantasy. We then move on to number 9. And if this guy sticks on this line, he's definitely ownable. Only owned in 9% of leagues, but he's playing with Aho and Teravainen on the top line in Carolina. Because, as I mentioned, and I do have to mention this, there were 2 players I was kind of down on going into the draft because they were taken away from the first line. One was Gabriel Landeskog. The other was Andrei Svechnikov. Now, what happened with Landeskog is the last day before the game started, they moved Landeskog right back up to the first line. So, I was wrong there. It happens, is what it is. However, the Svechnikov thing, they are not keeping him with the first line. They are putting Nino Niederreiter there for depth scoring. And I believe Svechnikov got a goal the other night. Might have been an empty netter if I'm not mistaken. I think I saw that. But if Niederreiter, either way, if Niederreiter sticks on this first line, a very ownable player. He has a very good scoring touch. People forget that because, slumped with the Wild, then came here last year. I'm not really sure how he did last year off the top of my head. But I do know Nino Niederreiter, stuck with the right players, can be an effective scorer just because of his shooting ability. So he's definitely someone to watch or pick up later because, playing with Aho and Teravainen, you're probably going to get a decent amount of points. So definitely watching Niederreiter and considering picking up later. So those are all my thoughts on the, not all my thoughts, that's not really correct. Those are some of my thoughts on the opening 2 days of the NHL season. Now there are guys who I could also talk about, like Höglander on Vancouver, Grzelcyk on Boston, but there's a lot of guys to talk about, and these were just the 9 situations, I should say, that I was put together when I put together the video. And trust me, in the next few days there will be more videos like this talking about other players who appear to maybe have a chance to break out. And as I said, I'm not here to sell you on some players and tell you like these guys are going to be definite studs, because there's a reason they didn't go drafted, because there's not a big guarantee with a lot of these players. But some of these guys like Farabee, I think, are worth picking up right now. And then you got guys like, I don't know, like a Connor Garland, who's just like, probably you won't end up picking him up, but you should watch him just in case he breaks out. He looks pretty good, but you can't guarantee it. So I hope you enjoyed this video talking about some players who have played well over the first 2 nights. And if you have any questions about drop an ad or maybe like trades, anything really at all in fantasy, feel free to leave it in the comments down below. I respond to all the comments. I'm not always right, but maybe I can give you a little bit of advice which convinces you a certain way. Thank you for watching as always. If you haven't subscribed, consider hitting the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up button, and I'll see you in the next one. Enjoy the hockey. I'll talk to you later.